Greetings, friends. You are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of March 4th, 2025. A huge number of events have taken place today, so let's get started. We begin with the Sudzha salient. Today, footage from objective control has emerged, confirming the presence of Russian Federation forces in the settlement of Zhuravka. We just watched a video showing a Ukrainian drone striking a Russian soldier. Based on this footage, a slight map adjustment was made, and we marked the northern part of Zhuravka, already part of the Sumy region, as controlled by the Russian Federation. Information is also continuing to come in from various cartographers regarding control over the settlement of Novenkaya. However, Russian units had already made a small, so to speak, deepening towards Sumy a few days ago. So far, we are not seeing further developments in this situation. Perhaps they entered, secured their positions, and are now waiting for better weather conditions to advance. At the moment, movement across the fields is not feasible, but perhaps there is no need for that. Today, without exception, all sources confirm that the Ukrainian side is losing at least 33% of its equipment. Various military vehicles moving along the H07 highway are being destroyed by Russian drones. In other words, logistics and supply lines to Sudzha have already been disrupted. The Ukrainian Armed Forces, AFU, are suffering enormous losses. This region has already become heavily dependent on external aid, and if combat operations continue in the same manner as they are now on this section of the front, then in a year it is possible that Ukraine's entire military vehicle fleet could be destroyed just on this road of death. Even if Russian forces do not advance further and the Ukrainian side continues its efforts to hold this pocket at any cost. Moving on to the northern part, toward Malaya Loknya. Assault operations are ongoing here. Russian units are gradually advancing from Orlovka, Novaya Sorochina, and Staraya Sorochina. Today, footage from objective control was published, showing Russian soldiers raising a flag in the northern part of the settlement of Novaya Sorochina. Let me remind you that, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, various cartographers and military experts, Novaya Sorochina has completely come under the control of the Russian army. At present, hostilities are already taking place in the territory of Malaya Loknya. Now we move southward to the Sudzha salient, where two key developments have occurred. First, let's discuss the Guevo-Garnal line. This is the second supply route that the AFU still has to maintain combat effectiveness in Sudzha and the Sudzha salient. However, this road is also now under full Russian fire control. In these newly released images, we can see two AFU vehicles moving towards Sudzha, but getting caught either in an ambush or under artillery fire, forcing them to stop. One vehicle was hit, while the other was unable to continue moving. In other words, all roads are under heavy Russian fire control, and the Russian army is making gradual progress. However, the most interesting footage has come from the settlement of Makhnovka. Let's take a look at this footage. You can see that we have added a small island. Let's call it an island of resistance, or something similar. It's hard to say for sure, but today Ukrainian sources from the 78th Separate Air Assault Regiment released footage showing FPV drone strikes on Russian forward positions in Makhnovka. In these videos, we see a Ukrainian drone approaching, while a Russian soldier tries to take cover from it. The footage is fresh and was published today. The only question that arises from watching this video is how Russian troops managed to reach this part of Makhnovka. Perhaps there was some kind of breakthrough. Yesterday, Ukrainian sources reported that the situation in the Sudzha direction is critically dire. In the near future, geolocation data should emerge confirming a breakthrough by Russian troops. It is possible that this is what they were referring to. But at this moment, it remains unclear how Russian forces managed to advance so deeply into Makhnovka. More details may emerge soon, and we might fully mark this area as Russian-controlled on the map. In any case, if this information is accurate and the footage is not from December, then the situation for AFU units in this section of the front is becoming extremely difficult. Now we move toward Kupiansk, where hostilities continue, with the main battles taking place in the northeastern part. Today, some cartographers note that the armed forces of Ukraine conducted a series of counterattacks in the northeastern part of Kupiansk. Their main objective was to regain control over certain positions along the railway, and attempt to wedge themselves between the settlement of Senkivka, Lyman 1 and the Oskil River, pushing north as deeply as possible. The AFU is conducting these counter-offensive operations with the goal of cutting off Russian units on the Ukrainian side of the Oskil River from supply lines. If Ukrainian forces succeed in executing these counterattacks, the Russian grouping in the Dvorichna area could find itself partially without logistics or partially cut off from resupply. If and when this happens, it could allow Ukrainian forces to launch more intense attacks from the west toward Dvorichna and also toward the settlement of Zapadne. It appears that these are the types of operations Ukraine is currently attempting to carry out. Next, we move to the central Kupiansk direction, where reports indicate that in the past 24 hours, the Russian army has significantly expanded its zone of control near the settlement of Zarizhzhia. In fact, Zarizhzhia has now fully entered the grey zone. It is possible that in the near future, the map will be fully updated, and the battle for the settlement of Bohuslavka will begin. There is also reported progress by Russian troops near the settlement of Nadia. The map has undergone significant changes here. According to pro-Ukrainian mapping services, the Russian army is cautiously advancing toward the settlement of Chernyshchina. Now we move to the Lyman direction and the Siversky section of the front. Here, as you can see, on the Lyman front, Russian forces continue to expand their zone of control on the Ukrainian side of the Zherebets River. At present, according to some pro-Russian sources, the main combat operations are taking place near the settlement of Novolyubivka, west of Nevsky. Additionally, strikes are being carried out against strongholds located between Lyman and the Zherebets River. The Russian army is gradually grinding down the AFU's defenses. There may be preparatory actions ahead of a larger offensive operation. On the Siversky section of the front, Russian forces are primarily employing aviation and artillery. Temporary deployment points of the Ukrainian armed forces are being destroyed, and temporary positions of FPV drone operators are being identified. Overall, the situation is similar. Russia is gradually preparing a staging area for a new assault, which may be executed soon by units of the South Military Grouping. I remind you that a few weeks ago, Valery Gerasimov visited the area of responsibility of this grouping, possibly to present plans for further operations. Now we move toward the Chasiv Yar Toretsk direction. Here, there have been no significant changes, but a slight adjustment in the Toretsk area has taken place. In these images, we can see Russian soldiers clearing central Toretsk, specifically the central citadel. I remind you that a few days ago, Ukrainian forces managed to conduct a fairly effective and successful counterattack, as a result of which most of northern Toretsk came back under Ukrainian control. These images show the clearing of this particular building. Now we move to the Pokrovsk direction. Here, pro-Ukrainian sources report that the settlement of Pishchane has once again fully come under the control of Russian forces. The AFU still maintains control along the railway and possibly the outskirts. With the re-establishment of control over Pishchane, logistics have also been restored with the settlements of Kotlin and Udakne, which may soon provide an impetus for further offensive operations. At present, the Russian side is actively targeting mines located to the north and northwest. It is possible that Russian troops will advance in this direction. Now we move to the southern Donetsk section of the front. Here, the map has not undergone any changes. The situation in Kostiantynopil and Andriivka remains unclear. For now, it seems that both settlements, both defensive positions, are in a semi-encirclement, but without any significant advances. The main activity today, as in previous days, is observed in the Velika Novosilka direction. Russian forces are actively targeting the settlement of Kamar. Currently, Kamar functions as a logistical hub, distributing forces and supplies to Ukrainian units, either toward Velika Novosilka or toward Kostiantynopil Bohatyr. For this reason, the city is regularly subjected to strikes by the Russian army, Russian artillery, and Russian aviation. Since January, a significant number of FAB airstrikes have been recorded here, destroying nearly everything that could be destroyed. And it is precisely through the settlement of Kamar that the supply of the AFU grouping along the Mokry Yali River is conducted. This follows the route from Skudna, then north toward Vezelo, Fedorivka, and finally Kamar itself. Speaking of the Shevchenkivsky direction, over the past 24 hours, as you can see, the map has undergone changes. According to various sources, between March 2nd and 3rd, the Russian armed forces significantly expanded their zone of control in the settlement of Privolne. There are objective control images confirming the presence of Russian soldiers in this settlement. Additionally, some cartographers note the advance of the Russian army north of Belatske. So we can see that every day, more and more geolocations are emerging from this area, indicating that the Russian army does not intend to retreat anytime soon. On the Zaporizhzhia front, an increasing number of images are being published from the settlements of Huliai-Pol and Orikhiv. Here, Russian units and the Russian army have intensified their activity, striking temporary deployment points. At present, the highest number of available images also comes from this section of the front. All the objective control footage and all this information suggest that in the near future, when the muddy season ends and the ground conditions stabilize, the Russian army may launch an offensive in this area, either in the Orikhiv sector or the Huliai-Pol sector. And that's all, dear friends. Thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the best to you.